it's good that we have the Lord's presence with us here. Okay, guys, you're welcome to today's lesson. I hope you're energized for today's lesson. And we are continuing with digestion in man. We are focusing mainly in man. And the other day, we had an introduction into what digestion is. We looked at digestion in the mouth, what happens as food moves to the stomach. And we also talked about digestion in the stomach. And now we continue with the digestion in the duodenum. So today's presentation is focusing on the duodenum and in the ileum. Yes, Arthur?
Well, there is a question in the chat.
Yes.
Someone is saying that we had promised them to start with the questions that they had from the previous lesson. How do you see about that? How do you see if we give them about 5 minutes? That there were questions they had from the previous lesson.
They have questions from the previous lesson.
Yes.
Okay. So Akela was trying to do a recap then, but probably we can take on a few questions if there are questions. So you can put up your hands. Those who had the questions, please put up your hand so that we answer them maybe in the next 5 minutes as we wait for your friends also to log in. There are 155 students. Okay. Tronila, your hand is up.
Okay, Tronila, you can unmute.
Yes.
Excuse me, teacher. The previous lesson said the alimentary canal is about 30 feet. Does it mean that when a baby is born, is it 30 feet or the alimentary canal keeps on growing as it grows?
I beg your pardon?
You said that yesterday the alimentary canal is about 30 feet. Is a baby born with that same length, or as the baby grows, the alimentary canal?
She's asking about the alimentary canal.
Okay, I think I can respond to her question. The size of the organs that we have in our body, all organs keep on growing, keep on increasing as we grow. So the size of all organs keep on increasing as we grow. I hope I have answered you, Tronila.
So
any other question? Then there is a question in the chat room that what is the definition?
So her question, so probably we are talking about an adult. Remember when we talked about the 9, we are looking at an adult. So I don't see any hands.
So you're breaking.
Okay. Am I breaking too?
No.
Okay.
Hello, yes.
Okay. Now, what we can say is that when we say that the adult intestines are about 7 or 6 meters long, that is the average length, the average. But we can have different sizes according to our body sizes. But when we say that they are 6 meters long, that would be the average. But the length can differ according to the height of the individual. Then someone's asking that what is peristalsis? Peristalsis is the process or is the mechanism by which food passes through the gullet and the intestines. The process by which food passes through the gullet and the intestines. It is like if we have toothpaste in its tube. So when you want to get toothpaste out of that tube, you press that tube. You press, as you press, the toothpaste is pushed outwards. Now also, when we swallow food, food goes through our esophagus in that mechanism, that it is like something keeps on pushing that food through the esophagus. So that mechanism of the contraction of the esophagus muscles to push the food forward is what is called peristalsis. Then someone is asking, what is peptic ulcers? Peptic ulcers, here we have two words. We have peptic and ulcers. Ulcers are wounds in the gut, wounds in the gut or in the alimentary canal, wounds. So if those wounds are as a result of the action of pepsin in your stomach, remember pepsin digests fat, can digest your stomach walls. So if the wounds you have in your stomach are as a result of the activity of pepsin, then those ulcers are called peptic ulcers or stomach ulcers. Someone is saying, what causes ulcers? This one, Teacher Milton, I have forgotten. Have you looked at digestion in the stomach yet?
Yes, we did.
You did?
We did that, and we actually talked about what causes the peptic ulcers. Yes, because remember, girls, when we talked about the mucus lining, you know, the mucus lining in the alimentary canal. So when you have less mucus, then you'll have the acid corroding. The acid starts corroding the lining of the stomach. You imagine the acid is corroding the stomach, or it is burning, you know. I think even Mr. Bimat talked about even heartburn, which they asked. It is still the acid which tries to come back to the esophagus and causes that burning sensation.
Okay.
Yes.
Then there is another question that, teacher, if one takes black tea alone for breakfast, what happens in the body? You have taken something, you have eaten something. So the nutrients in the black tea are going to be, if they need digestion, they will be digested and absorbed into your body. So like black tea can contain some vitamins, it can contain some mineral ions, it can also contain some sugars, sucrose. So sucrose will be digested by sucrase to glucose, then absorbed into your body. So I think those are the ones I'm seeing. So you can proceed with today's lesson, Mr. Chepet.
Okay, thank you so much, Arthur, for that response. We shall take on more questions later as they come, but you can also utilize the chat box. My colleagues can answer some of them as we move along. So in today's duodenum and in the ileum. So I hope my audio is clear, Arthur, because I see the internet bars are a bit low. So girls, when you look at the duodenum, we already talked about what the duodenum is when we looked at the alimentary canal. So this is the duodenum. Actually, the duodenum is part of the intestines. It's part of the small intestines. So we have, in the small intestines, we have the duodenum and the ileum. So note that we have the duodenum and the ileum as part of the small intestines. So in this case, we are looking at digestion in the duodenum. So this is the part of the alimentary canal after the stomach. As you can see, this is the stomach and food goes into the duodenum. There is a sphincter here. Remember, we talked about the sphincters. So this is a sphincter which lets food into the duodenum. Okay, so this is the further structure of the duodenum. Now, when you look at the duodenum, it's the actions or what aids digestion is the associated organs. Remember, we talked about associated organs. Now, we have what we call the pancreas. Okay, we have the pancreas here. So the contents in the pancreas have to be emptied into the duodenum. It has to travel to the duodenum through a duct. So there is a duct here. Then we also have a gallbladder, which is from the liver. Okay. So in this case also, we have what we call the bile duct, which empties its contents from the liver into the duodenum. So it is very important to note that the actions actually, they are coming from the associated organs, the pancreas, and then we have the gallbladder. Okay, so this is the structure of the duodenum. So when you're labeling, we have the pancreas, which is a major organ that produces substances that will aid digestion in the duodenum. And then we have the gallbladder. But to reach the duodenum, there must be a duct. The food from the stomach enters into the duodenum through what we call the pyloric sphincter. Now, by the time food leaves the stomach, it has been called chyme. Okay, it forms what we call chyme. So chyme is let into the duodenum by the pyloric sphincter. So that is the muscle that regulates the movement of chyme from the stomach to the duodenum. Okay, so what happens in the duodenum? The chyme from the stomach enters the duodenum in actually smaller quantities. Like I've already said, it is regulated by the pyloric sphincter. Now, when food arrives in the duodenum, it will stimulate the release of bile from what we call the gallbladder. And then pancreatic juice from the pancreas. Now, the pancreatic juice contains enzymes. Okay, it has enzymes and alkaline salts. We shall see the importance. So the secretion of these alkalines actually stops the action of pepsin and provides ideal pH for the working of the pancreatic juice. Okay, so when you look at the enzymes in the pancreatic juice, there are mainly three. There are three enzymes from the pancreatic juice. So we have pancreatic amylase, pancreatic lipase, and trypsin. Okay, so we have those three. pancreatic enzymes, pancreatic lipase, and trypsin. Now, what does each one do? Remember, we said enzymes are specific in nature. It is a property for enzymes, which means one enzyme catalyzes the breakdown of a particular food. So trypsin catalyzes the breakdown of proteins into peptides. Then pancreatic amylase catalyzes the breakdown of any starch that was not digested in the mouth into maltose. And now we have pancreatic lipase, which catalyzes the breakdown of lipids into fatty acids and glycerols. So these are the three enzymes which are released with the pancreatic juice. Okay, now let's watch just a video talking about this before we continue.
The pyloric sphincter resembles the esophageal sphincter. The pyloric sphincter opens only a few millimeters so that large pieces remain inside the stomach. In the first section of the small intestine, the duodenum, bile, and pancreatic secretions are mixed with the chyme via the ampulla of Vater. Pancreatic juice contains numerous digestive proenzymes and enzymes. In order for these to do their job, a higher pH value than that in the stomach is necessary. For this reason, pancreatic juice contains sodium hydrogen carbonate. Hydrogen carbonate is able to neutralize the acid in the chyme and thus produce the optimum pH value of 7 or 8. Pancreatic juice also contains proenzymes. It is only through enterokinase, released by the duodenum wall, that the proenzyme trypsinogen becomes trypsin, which can split proteins and activate other trypsinogens. We also find alpha amylase, which we had already regarding the splitting of carbomaltose.
Pancreatic juice
Well, I think Teacher Milton has issues with his network. Milton, are you back?
for that I went off. Yes,
Yes,
hello,
I was just thinking of starting off. Yes, I can hear you now.
Is it clear?
Yes, now you are.
Okay. Okay. So I was talking about I think we've just watched a video which was showing digestion in the duodenum. Okay. So we've talked about okay. Remember that trypsin, just like pepsin last time, we talked about pepsin last time, and we said that these are proteolytic enzymes, or these are protein digesting enzymes. And what happens is that they can actually act on the walls of the gut. So in this case, we have trypsinogen. Trypsin is secreted in inactive form called trypsinogen. Now, what activates trypsinogen is an enzyme called enterokinase. So in this case, we have enterokinase activating trypsinogen into trypsin. Okay, so you need to note that trypsin is secreted in inactive form called trypsinogen. And what activates trypsinogen is an enzyme called enterokinase. Enterokinase, it's there. So both trypsin and pancreatic amylase catalyzes the breakdown of proteins and starch that were not broken down earlier on. So I need to note that. Okay. Now, what about the bile? What does the bile do? What does it do? Okay. So the bile has two roles here. One, it's alkaline. Its property of being alkaline neutralizes the HCl, which is from the stomach, and therefore it stops the action of enzymes from the stomach, hence allowing only the pancreatic enzymes to work. Okay, so the bile actually contains salts, and those salts neutralizes the HCl, which is from the stomach. Remember, the chyme is actually acidic because of the HCl, which was released in the stomach. Now, the bile salts actually neutralizes that acid. That is number one. Okay. Secondly, bile salts reduces the surface tension of fats and breaks them into smaller droplets. So there is what we call emulsification, okay? The breaking down of large fat into smaller droplets, such that pancreatic lipase can now easily catalyze their breakdown. So that is function number two. And I saw somebody was asking that there is chemical digestion, which is carried out by the bile salts. Now, this is it, okay? So you can see that the fat, which is large, can be broken down into smaller droplets. And remember, when we are talking about the factors which affect enzyme activity, we talked about the substrate concentration. How do you increase the substrate concentration? When you break it into smaller droplets, you've broken it into smaller droplets. That's like increasing the surface, the substrate concentration. Here, the fat is a substrate, which is acted upon by enzyme lipase, pancreatic lipase. So for pancreatic lipase to work well, this fat, which is bigger, should be broken down into minute droplets. That's what we call emulsification. We also talk about surface tension. It's like when you have fat, when you have oil, you see how oil moves together. It is like a large thumb, like this one here. When you look at this one here, and then it is broken down into these droplets. So that is the function of the bile. You realize that those of you who cut chicken at home, those who think that chicken comes from the supermarket, you may not have experienced this. But if you cut chicken at home, you realize that when you're removing the liver, because liver is a delicacy, within the liver itself, there is that greenish substance. If you mix it with the food, say with the chicken, you'll spoil everything because of the bile salts. Those bile salts make the whole food bitter. So you have to remove the bile carefully. when you want to enjoy your liver. Me, I enjoy liver. Let's see. So this is how it breaks.
The bile breaks the fats down into tiny droplets. This is called emulsification.
Yes, so this is emulsification.
Other enzymes are part of pancreatic juice.
Okay.
Because the bile.
So this is the large ones. These are the fats. Now it's going to be broken down. So emulsification is going to take place. The surface tension is going to be reduced. Yeah, surface tension, like I said, it is like having oil. Oil has a high surface tension.
Bile breaks the fats down into tiny droplets. This is called emulsification. Numerous other enzymes are part of pancreatic juice.
Okay, so the question could be, describe or explain the role of the pancreas in digestion. Or explain the role of the liver or the gallbladder in digestion. When they ask you such questions, you should be able to answer. So I think we can take on a few questions and we move on. A few questions and we move on. There are some few questions on my chat box. Somebody's asking, when we drink water, does it go directly down into the stomach? Mr. Wagambi, stay there.
Yes,
then
please.
Another one. Yes, when we drink water, does it go directly down to the stomach?
Yes,
What goes directly.
It goes directly to the stomach, and for it is when it reaches the stomach, we are going to talk about the details of the stomach with some structures. So it is absorbed directly. Doesn't need to be.
Yes, a large deal in the ileum. Then another one, teacher, are sodium chloride, sodium hydrogen carbonate examples of bile salts?
Yes, they are. Yes, both of them. There are a number of salts, but the most important ones are the hydrogen carbonates that will neutralize the acid, the hydrochloric acid from the stomach. Otherwise, there are a number of them, but the major component is sodium hydrogen carbonate, which is very important for neutralizing the acid. Otherwise, some sodium chloride can also be there.
Okay, and then the last one in my chat box. Why is it that when we eat a lot of fat or oily foods, we get nausea?
Nausea. First of all, what is nausea? These fats, I'm going to give part, then someone will add on. These fats have very large molecules. They are not very easily broken down. So they take a lot of energy to be broken down. I think we shall better discuss when we are discussing the small intestines. Remember, for the fats, for them, they are taken as large molecules, then they are absorbed as large molecules, then later are broken down. So because of that, they require a lot of energy, and because of requiring a lot of energy, we become nausea. The nausea is ability of the body. What is the ability of the body not to being dizzy? Being dizzy, I can say that.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Arthur, can we turn maybe?
Okay. Also, there is some more recurring question in my chat as well. People are asking that what is HCl? HCl is hydrochloric acid. In food, is hydrochloric acid. Then someone is asking people, why is it that, why do they say that it is bad to swim after eating? Because the moment you stand in water, that water starts pressing your body. It starts pressing your body. Even that's why you start breathing badly when you're in water. So it is assumed that when you eat and you stand in the water, chances are high that you may vomit that food out. The stomach will be pressed by that force of the water. Any is trypsinogen activated by? Didn't get it. Now, some of the things we refuse to talk about them intentionally. Some of the things refuse to talk about them intentionally because perhaps we know that those details, they would be too much for you at your level, and no one would ask you such questions. So when they just say that trypsinogen is activated into trypsin, if we don't go into the details of what actually does that one, know that we're trying to be economical with some content, not to confuse you at this level of senior 2. Then someone is asking that in the notes we say that when food arrives in the duodenum, it stimulates secretion of hormones, hormones called cytokinin and etc. Yes, it is true. There are some hormones involved in this digestion, but we have removed those details in our PowerPoint slides because those details we don't need them. Also, those details are for senior 5 biology. For us here, what we are interested in is the process of digestion and the enzymes involved, but not the hormones. So you can also ignore the hormones that are appearing in your notes. No one will ask you. Okay, then now we can take some hands. Berita.
Teacher, so no digestion takes place in the pancreas and the liver. They just secrete bile juice, pancreatic juice, and put it in the duodenum. There's no digestion at all in the liver and the pancreas.
Digestion takes place only in the canal, the alimentary canal. The pancreas and the liver, those are organs, those are associated organs. So it is true, digestion only takes place in the stomach and the duodenum, and it does not take place in the pancreas and the liver. Those ones, they just do the secretions and they release their secretions into duodenum for digestion of food. Esther?
Excuse me, teacher. Is it true that when you're cutting chicken and by mistake the bile juice comes out, even those main parts that you had already removed away and then the bile juice does not pour on them? Is it true that even though they're already separated from but where the bile juice has like poured, do they also become sour?
It is not true.
Okay.
Those are just myth stories.
Thank you.
Dav? Dav? Sorry, you can unmute yourself again.
My question was, what is the use of glycerol in the body?
The use of glycerin in our bodies.
Yes.
Okay. Now, those compounds, they can be broken down to provide energy, or they can even be converted and stored beneath our skin as fats. Daphne?
Teacher, my question is that, okay, like how we have the pyloric sphincter between the stomach and duodenum, is there anything between the duodenum and the ileum?
No.
It's just a passage. Doesn't have anything.
It is just a passage.
Thank you, teacher.
You're welcome. Sean, Lisa?
Yes, teacher. I don't know if anyone had asked. My internet was a little bit bad. I was asking that what causes ulcers in the stomach? What causes ulcers?
Okay, now let me answer this question once and for all. Ulcers are wounds in the stomach. When hydrochloric acid overstays in the stomach, it can burn those stomach walls and it puts wounds on them. Also, the pepsin enzyme that is in the stomach, remember pepsin digests proteins, and meat, all forms of meat, including the intestines, because we normally eat them as offals. All forms of meat are proteins in nature. All forms of meat are proteins in nature. So if all forms of meat are proteins in nature, it means that even that pepsin can digest your intestines. It can digest your stomach walls if it stays in the stomach. So what causes ulcers? It is not eating in time, staying hungry for long hours, to the extent that the enzymes and the acid stays in the stomach and it ends up burning your walls, causing wounds onto them.
But teacher, I thought that the enzymes are produced after the food is present, or it just keeps producing even if the food is not there.
Of course, whenever you feel hungry, you start thinking of eating. So the moment you get those thoughts of food, then the secretion of the enzymes begins.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Even thought.
In addition,
yes, Festo.
When someone is hungry, they should not take things like sweets, because they will stimulate the stomach to produce that juice, which contains hydrochloric acid, and it starts burning. Because once they those sweets, then the stomach is stimulated and the still starts burning. So they should take the sweets when they are not very hungry. Otherwise.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Sorry, sir. Can you hear me?
I will ask your question.
Yes, sir. I had a question, and it was about sir. It was about a gland that you talked about yesterday. Yesterday you were telling us about the pyloric gland, and I was wondering, when that gland gets like that, is that what causes the disease H. pylori?
I don't think I've gotten your question. First of all, we don't have a pyloric gland.
So I was asking the pyloric gland that you were talking about yesterday. So I remember when you talked about that.
Did we talk about pyloric gland?
Yes, sir. I remember you saying it somewhere.
Is it in the notes?
I think it's in the previous note.
No, I think you're not so sure. So first check properly, then you rephrase your question again, because I'm also equally confused. I don't know what you're talking about actually.
My question was the pyloric gland, when it gets damaged, is that what causes the disease H. pylori?
Oh, you're talking about of the disease H. pylori.
Yes.
Well, Tita Milton, do you remember talking about that pyloric gland and the H. pylori disease?
Yeah. No, I didn't talk about anything like that. I think she must have read somewhere. We are giving you things. We need to warn you that so many things that you'll encounter. So we try to stick to the scope. What you're supposed to learn.
Sorry.
There is just too much science out there about this. So what we are giving you is actually, I'll try to answer some questions even outside the scope.
Okay, now for me, let me just answer her just casually. Now, H. pylori It is caused by excessive, someone can have a lot of bacteria in his stomach, and these bacteria cannot be destroyed by the hydrochloric acid in the stomach. Because there are certain bacteria that have that ability to withstand the acidic conditions in the stomach. So that is what can cause that H. pylori disease. But we don't have a gland called pyloric gland. It is not there. Then lastly, Deborah.
Of course, we need to.
What's the meaning of chyme?
Chyme. Now,
Yes.
chyme is the food that is
From the stomach.
leaving the stomach. It is the name given to food leaving the stomach.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think we need to move.
Actually, there are no more hands.
Okay, they'll raise at the end of this if we have time. So, girls, now we look at digestion in the ileum. Remember, I said that the intestines, the small duodenum and the ileum. So the ileum is part of the small intestine, just like the duodenum. So the duodenum is separated from the ileum because of the difference in the way digestion takes place. Now, in the ileum is actually the final part of the, and actually food moves through the duodenum into the ileum by peristalsis, like teacher Arthur talked about what peristalsis is. This is just when muscles contract and things move. It is entericus. In the duodenum, we had the pancreatic juice and bile juice. Now, in this case, we have succus entericus, which is intestinal juice. So it comes from the walls of the ileum. Now, it contains enzymes which complete the process of digestion, and it forms a milky fluid. Now, in this case, we shall call it chyle. Now, that is food which is ready to be absorbed. Okay, the food that is ready to be absorbed is called chyle. It is now very refined. It is milky fluid. Okay, so digestion has taken place, and there is now substance which is ready to be absorbed, and that absorption takes place in the ileum. Now let's look at what is actually contained in this. What is contained in this juice? What enzymes are there? Okay, so there are enzymes which complete the digestion. So intestinal juice contains about 5 enzymes. So you can see, and I think we have already talked about these enzymes at some point, apart from, I think, peptides and lipase. So we have sucrase, which speeds the breakdown of sucrose into glucose and fructose, the sugar. And then maltose, remember there was digestion of starch into maltose. Now maltose needs to be, its digestion needs to be completed. And the enzyme is maltase. Maltase speeds the breakdown of maltose into glucose and glucose. Then we have lactase, which speeds the breakdown of lactose, that's the milk sugar, into glucose and galactose. So when you take milk, it goes direct into the intestines. That's where its breakdown will take place. Then peptidase breaks down peptides now into amino acids. And finally, we have lipase, which speeds the breakdown of lipids into fatty acids and glycerols. So you can see that somebody who has eaten cassava and someone who has taken the milk will get the energy faster down. Okay, the intestine. That's in the ileum. What happens in the colon? In the colon, there is a great deal of water and mineral salts are absorbed. Okay, the colon is now the large intestine. Now, what is not digested will go down through the large intestines and eventually removed from the body as feces from the anus. Okay, and remember there is a rectum which stores the feces for some time. Okay, so in the colon there is no digestion. There is no digestion in the large intestines. So other hard particles like stones that you know when you eat food, sometimes it has stones, it has some sticks which cannot be digested. So sometimes they can end up in the appendix and results into a condition called appendicitis. Okay. Now, once that appendix is removed by surgical operation, then you'll be relieved. I know, of course, somebody will ask me, then what is the use of appendix in man? You know, when the food accumulates, when those particles accumulate to a point when it is it's dangerous. But you know, appendix is it's much pronounced in animals which consume. We have a lot of those stones and the sticks and that kind of thing. So just to, I think we've talked about digestion in the mouth, in the stomach, in the duodenum, and then in the ileum. So what's important for you to note is which food is digested at which point and by what. What is the enzyme? Which enzymes digest foods at which point? Okay, and then what is the secretion called? What's the name of the juice? That is that about digestion in the ileum. Maybe we can take on some questions if there is any.
Of course, there will always be. Okay.
This time the hands are few.
Karen?
Excuse me, teacher. If they cut your appendix, when you have appendicitis, where will the stones and particles that are not digested go?
You just put them out. You simply put them out. So an appendix is a disguise.
Okay, thank you.
Joanna?
Yes, I see. Yes, Karen.
Teacher, excuse me, teacher. Yes. What causes like rumbling in a person's stomach when they are hungry?
Okay. I thought I had answered that question in box, but you can as well talk about it. Of course, the alimentary canal walls, all the muscles that they have, keep on contracting and relaxing to push the food that they have out of them. So when you are hungry, the stomach starts to contract in anticipation of the food that you are likely to eat. So as it contracts and relaxes, that contraction movement of the of the walls causes that sound of the grumbling. Cynthia?
I see people, there are a lot of people who remove their gallbladders. What's the function of the gallbladder?
People don't remove their gallbladders. The gallbladder stores bile juice. It stores bile juice. Now, when the liver makes bile juice, it stores it in the gallbladder. Then when food arrives in the duodenum, the gallbladder releases that juice. Then I can as well answer some questions in my inbox. Then
yes, there was one who was asking about medicine. That is medicine digested? When you swallow medicine, is it digested? Somebody was asking in my inbox.
I even remember someone was also asking whether vitamins are digested. Well, now mineral salts and vitamins, they are digested in our bodies. So the medicines already contain some mineral salts. They can also contain some vitamins. So those ones, their substances are just absorbed into our bodies. So they are not food. They are not food nutrients. They are not food nutrients to be digested chemically. Then inbox, I'm seeing that.
I see Sheila there. Can you help her to maybe unmute her?
Okay, Sheila, can you unmute yourself?
And Vanilla.
Hear me?
Yes.
I was asking, so if someone has a surgery where their gallbladder needs to be removed, where will the bile juice be stored?
First of all, that thing can't be removed. It is very important. It can't be removed. And never do they remove it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Then still, I'm seeing someone is still insisting on us answering that they did not understand the question about H. pylori. The teacher answered the question about H. pylori. Is it the same as the ulcers? Now, H. pylori is a bacteria that can stay in your stomach, and the acids in the stomach cannot actually affect it. It can tolerate the acidic conditions in the stomach, and that bacteria can start eating up your walls, your stomach walls, and you end up getting wounds. And the moment you get wounds in your stomach, that is ulcers. So it means that ulcers can even be caused by some bacteria that can stay in your stomach. So if the ulcers is caused by that bacteria, then that is what they call the H. pylori disease. But if the ulcers are caused by the hydrochloric acid or the pepsin enzyme, then that type of ulcers is called the peptic ulcers or gastric ulcers. So I hope that one is now clear. H. pylori is a bacteria.
Okay, I think maybe Tronila and Karen.
Tronila?
Excuse me, teacher.
Yes.
Does a dove produce bile juice? Because dove does not have a gallbladder. So where does it store bile juice if it produces bile juice? Where does it store it? Because a dove doesn't have a gallbladder.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
Neither did I. But is it true anyway?
Yeah, but remember we are talking about our digestion is in reference to man. We are looking at a man. but probably you know organisms have got different adaptations depending their feeding. What do they feed on? Is the gallbladder necessary for them? Because now the dove, we can get into now questions like, does it eat oil? Does it take a lot of food which contains oil? I mean, fat. So ideally,
yeah, Teacher Milton.
Yes.
I have checked some sources here. They're actually saying that doves and pigeons, they don't have a gallbladder. And they are saying that although the reason behind this anomaly is unknown, interestingly, these birds still produce bile. It's simply secreted directly in the gut. So it doesn't have that the bile is done by the liver, secreted by the liver, and then directed to the gut. And mind you, remember the function of the gallbladder is not to make bile, but it is to store it. It's the liver that makes the bile.
It's the liver that produces. So probably for them now, is produced, is transported immediately. There is no storage. Interesting. Interesting features about animals.
Somebody is saying what causes chest burn or heartburn?
I think Mr. Bima explained last time. Mr. Asa, you can just maybe highlight there because it's a common thing.
Sometimes the acids you have in the stomach can escape and enter into your esophagus or the gullet, and they burn it. Hence the heartburn. Urine is stored in the urinary bladder. Someone is asking where is urine stored? In urinary bladder.
Oh, okay. In gallbladder and.
Okay, so I think we can conclude, Mr. Milton. Over to you.
I think we can now start wrapping up.
Thank you so. Yeah, thank you so much. And then we are meeting again. We shall be looking at aspects of absorption and utilization of food, because now digestion has taken place. So what happens to the food which head? So we shall talk about absorption and utilization in the next lesson. Otherwise, you can make a summary of digestion in man, looking at the different parts of the alimentary canal. And beyond that, you can also look out for questions. In our e-learning platform, actually, we have many questions. We have some questions there when you go to the e-learning platform. I hope you girls have been able to go to the e-learning platform apart from the Google Classroom. Otherwise, have a lovely day and see you next week. Take care.